Bore da pawb, welcome to my wild Welsh garden. Well, as you can see, I'm not in my garden unless it's changed a lot since you last visited. But one of my lovely followers suggested that if there wasn't much to see in my garden, I could take you on a walk with me. So I thought you might like to join me. Yes, it's a fabulous day this morning, and we're now at the beginning of October. And to be honest, there may well not be many more days when I can come up here. So I thought I must make the most of this day. And so I thought I'd bring you along with me. I've just walked up from the village through a fragment of temperate rainforest. It looks like the Parks Department have been doing a bit of footpath maintenance there. And you can tell it's temperate rainforest because of the number of epiphytes. These are plants that live on other plants. So on these trees, there's lots of lichens and mosses growing, and a few ferns, not so many ferns here, mostly mosses and lichens. And you can't actually see them from here, but this is what happens. It's when the branches fall off the tops of the trees. You can see that they're completely encrusted in this fabulous moss and lichen. Absolutely beautiful. And a spider. The kind of conditions that you need for these epiphytes, these mosses and lichens, are cool summers, mild winters, and lots of rainfall all the year round, which of course is exactly the kind of conditions that we have here. And originally it would have covered most of the west side of the UK, so most of Wales, but there's only very few fragments left. There are efforts to restore the rainforest in a place in Scotland and in the West Country in Cornwall, and further west from here in Pembrokeshire in Wales, but not here, I'm afraid. So there lies my way. I'm actually standing on an old railway line, or tramway. This could have been a tramway actually, because up here there is an old quarry. People sort of sell the Brecon Beacons as, you know, one of the last proper wildernesses in the UK, and it's just not true. It's not a wilderness at all. It's been totally shaped by man, and this area here is just very post-industrial. Yeah, 100 years ago this would have been full of noise and smoke and people and pollution, and yes, it would have been absolutely horrible. And now there's just me. Llwybr troed, Banau Brycheiniog. Llwybr troed actually just means footpath. If you come to Wales, you'll see lots of signposts to a place called Llwybr Cyhoeddus, which actually means public footpath, because cyhoeddus means public. I must just apologise in advance for the shakiness of the video. I'm not very steady on my feet at the best of times, and I'm trying to walk and make a video and not fall over at the same time. So yes, it's quite an achievement really. So I'm climbing out of the woods now onto more open fields where the sheep are grazing. I've complained about sheep before on this channel, and we're going to see quite a few today, so I'm going to be doing it again. So I'll do it now and get it over with. But there's three problems with sheep. One is that they're selective grazers, so they seek out the sort of soft, delicate grasses and wildflowers and eat those, and they leave the thistles and the nettles and the docks. So when I come up here in the summer, there's very few wildflowers really. The The other problem is that they have little feet and they compact the ground. So whereas cattle will disturb the ground and give opportunities for seeds of wildflowers to germinate and establish themselves, the sheep do the opposite, really. They make it more difficult for wildflowers to colonise. Sheep to the right of me, and sheep to the left of me. And a very, very comfortable looking sheep. And then the third problem with sheep is there's just so many of them. There are 9 million sheep in Wales, and there's only 3 million people, so we're outnumbered 3 to 1. And you do have to ask yourself, really, whether we need that many sheep, because they do such damage to the environment. So onwards and upwards towards the old quarries at the top. I don't know what sort of stone it was they were quarrying here. It wasn't slate, that was in the north of Wales. And then over the other side of the valley was the coal mines, and that's one big slag heap now. You wouldn't realise it, would you? And until about 3 years ago, there was still an open cast mine over there, but it's closed and they've filled in the hole. And it's going to be an international high-speed rail testing centre. They're a different type of sheep in this field. Really cute little black jobs with white tails and white faces. It's quiet as quiet up on the fell today. There's only really the robin that sings in the winter in the UK, and there's no robins singing around here today. In the spring, this is a very good place for seeing and hearing the cuckoo. The cuckoos come here because up on the heath there are a lot of meadow pipits, and meadow pipit nests are the cuckoo's favourite for laying their eggs in. But they also do like to perch in trees, so they do come onto the trees and into the woods. It's actually quite steep coming up here. It might not look it, but it is. So pause to look at the view, catch my breath and look down the Swansea Valley. And there's some fabulous old gnarly hawthorns at the side of the tracks. Sort of memories of hedges long gone. Yeah, some of them are very old. And if you're wondering why there's no young trees or saplings or seedlings growing to take their place, that's because, well, the sheep have eaten them. And they're all covered in this sort of encrustation of lichens and mosses, just like they were down in the forest, which kind of indicates that this should be temperate rainforest as well. And that once upon a time, the forest would have come much higher up the fell side. Looking out to the east along the heads of the valleys. And then up to a stile in that little copse, which is a bit of a pause on this walk. And then over to the left in the trees here, there's a building, a very, very tumble down building, which isn't maintained at all. I don't know what it was, something to do with the tramway and the quarries. And another fabulously gnarly old hawthorn, just completely covered in mosses and lichens, completely encrusted. So I'm just going to sit here on this stile and have a cup of coffee and look at the view. And now I've come over the stile and I'm on the open moorland with another fabulous old tree. These big swathes of bracken are another indicator that there should be forest here. And this is very typical of ground that's overgrazed by sheep. They can't eat the bracken because it's toxic. And so you get these patches of the very fine, sweet vegetation that's just nibbled right down to the ground. And that's the way the tram line goes up to the quarries through the spoil heaps. But it's a bit steep for me, so I'm going to take this path that goes off to the left and goes over the brow of the hill. So onwards and upwards even more. Another pause to look at the view down the Swansea Valley. And onwards and upwards even further into Bracken. So this is the edge of the common land, just the other side of that dry stone wall. And there's little lumpy cribbath that's just peeping out over the top. And I think you can just see there's some sheep on the skyline. They're actually standing on another tramway that goes from a different quarry down to Ystrad, which is lower down the valley. And this used to be a building too. These stones are just the remains, and I think it was a pub because, of course, in the olden days people used to live up here. I'm going to go over this stile. Divide and porri, cadwch eich cyd an reolaeth glos. And now I'm standing on the other tramway. It goes down the valley in one direction and up to the quarries in the other. And I think you can see the line of the tramway. I can't go up there anymore, it's too steep for me. So instead, I'm going to cross the tramway and just follow a little sheep track up to a rocky outcrop up there, which is very insignificant and doesn't even have a name. And as I get up to the rocks, you begin to see Bracken, Brecon Beacons just stretching away for mile after empty mile. And the ground is just covered in mosses and lichens, and the rocks are encrusted in lichens. It's just like a little miniature world, little miniature alien world. And there's fungi and tiny, tiny mushrooms. And this is what I call the coffee seat. It's a nice flat seat, and I can just sit here and just look at the view. But as I've already had my coffee, I'm going to sit here and eat my lunch. It's very quiet at this time of year. During the spring and summer, there's skylarks and meadow pipits and wheatear and stonechats and ravens and red kites and buzzards. But at the moment there's not really very much going on at all. Over there lies the Beacons Way. It's a long distance footpath that goes from one side of Abanai Brecon to the other. And this is the portion that they say not to do in bad weather, because there are no paths. It's really quite a dangerous place to walk if you don't know it. And there are quite a few crash sites there from the Second World War of aircraft. This was where the bomber pilots used to practice low-flying missions, and of course their equipment wasn't very sophisticated, and sometimes they were nearer the ground than they realised, particularly in bad weather, and quite a number crashed. And amazingly, the wreckage is still there. Yes, it's really very sad. This common is grazed mostly by sheep, but right over there in the far distance there are some cattle, and my eyesight isn't good enough, but I think there may be some ponies as well. Last time I came up to the coffee seat there was a mare with a foal that could only have been a couple of days old, and yeah, she was not happy to see me at all, so I had to go and sit somewhere else to drink my coffee. So I'm just going to head back the way that I came, and I'm going to go down to the stile and back over the brow of the hill. I think you can see the path snaking down there. So I'm going to say goodbye to this lovely place, probably until next year now, because we've had these lovely days, but I don't come up here in the winter. It's too wet and it's too slippy, and I'm just not steady enough. So thank you for visiting me, not in my wild Welsh garden, but in the Welsh uplands. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to follow me on my journey, wilding my gardens and maybe doing some more walks in the Welsh countryside. So I'll leave you with a view down the Swansea Valley, and hope to see you in the next video when I'll be back in my garden. Bye! Hwyl fawr!